Gorilla Tag is evolving. If you play Gorilla Tag, you've probably heard of Another Axiom's next title, codenamed A2. And if you've been paying attention recently, you know that the official name is actually Orion Drift. Well, today, for the first time ever, I get to show you actual gameplay from inside Orion Drift. But on the way there, I want to specifically focus on the evolution of the physics-based movement. Let me start by saying I think evolving is exactly the right word for what I'm about to describe. It's certainly easier to clickbait you by telling you that Gorilla Tag, one of the most played VR games ever, is dying because this new amazing game is coming out, but that's just not the case. And an evolution doesn't require ancestors to die off. It's a branching off of populations under different pressures. And in this case, that pressure was a newly opened evolutionary niche that was left vacant when the population of Echo VR was brutally exterminated without cause. Okay, that's probably taking the metaphor a little bit too far. We can't really talk about the movement in Gorilla Tag and Orion Drift without at least briefly mentioning Echo VR. To move in a zero gravity environment without thrusters, you're either going to be pulling yourself along a surface or pushing off of that surface and using that momentum to hopefully get to another surface to hold on to. Of course, without any other mechanism, you would just be at the mercy of the direction and force of your last push. So Echo also had wrist thrusters to control your trajectory, a large back booster for speed, and an air brake. And finally, of course, I have to mention the wildest emergent gameplay mechanic that propelled players at insane speeds, regrabbing. And all of this felt incredible, if it didn't make you extremely sick. Something about your head floating in random directions while your real body was completely static really did not sit well with people who were prone to motion sickness. For the rest of us though, it was magical. Also, if this sounds cool to you, you should know that members of the Echo VR community were actually able to get the game up and running again, so if you want to try it, you still can. I'll put a link in the description to the Discord that can help you install it. Gorilla Tag took inspiration from Echo's hand physics-based locomotion and added one crucial element: gravity. That simple addition completely changes how this type of locomotion works. Instead of pushing off and floating, you sort of hop around on your hands, and if you want to stop moving, you just stop moving. So there's no need for an air brake button, and nobody's getting stuck trying to steer to a nearby object to grab a hold of. This made Gorilla Tag movement significantly more approachable than Echo movement. Especially for those who suffer from motion sickness, this extra bit of control kind of allows you to ease in. But I'm not saying that it's simple. Gorilla Tag movement is intuitive and easy to start learning, but it can take a long time to master. A lot of people, when they first try it, it can feel a little bit clunky. You want each stride to be propelling you forward, but you can sort of find yourself tripping over your own hands, which can be frustrating, and we haven't even talked about climbing yet. The skill ceiling for Gorilla Tag movement is insanely high, but it's also easy to just sort of hang out wherever you're comfortable. So that's Echo movement and Gorilla Tag movement, but this is Orion Drift. More specifically, this is one of the DRIFTBALL arenas inside of Orion Drift, and I can't tell you how excited I am to show you this. This is how you move. We call this paddling, and if I just keep paddling, the movement looks very similar to Gorilla Tag. But if I stop paddling, I slide. And the sliding unlocks a lot of skate-style movements that feel really good. This effectively gets rid of that clunky feeling that new Gorilla Tag players will have. The movement feels really smooth even as a beginner, and you can always use the grab button to magnet hand to the floor and stop if you start feeling out of control or sick. And on top of that, we also have wrist thrusters to help us get and control airtime. Seem familiar? I think I have to throw an honorable mention to Knock here. It's maybe the closest thing to this type of movement. And I do love Knock, but Knock's movement feels a little bit more abstract, like being on some kind of weird hovercraft, while the movement in Orion Drift feels more like being on roller skates. It's just really tactile and responsive. If you want to play Orion Drift for yourself, and if you made it this far in the video, I think that you do, you should definitely go to their Discord and apply for early access. The link is in the description. So this new movement feels really good, is very approachable for beginners, and has an insanely high skill ceiling, all within the confines of gravity. But it's not just confined to gravity.